You guys have heard me say that I know when I was a kid, there was always kind of a prayer, an opportunity to pray in church, and how it was presented was accepting Jesus as your personal Savior, accepting Jesus into your heart. And I've joked around and said that doesn't really work because that makes Jesus little tiny Jesus. And then we figure out how to put a volume knob or a mute button on that. And so whenever we don't want to hear what he has to say to us, we just say, well, it's just little tiny Jesus in our heart, right? But really, this story that Jesus is proclaiming is saying that, hey, this man found this treasure buried in this field. And in his joy, he went back home, he made some calculations, and he decided, I'm going to give up everything I have and turn it in so that I can have that field, so that I can find what's in that field. It'll cost you everything. Okay, I'm going to fly through this next one. Again, the kingdom of heaven, verse 45, is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. When he found one priceless pearl, he went and sold everything he had and bought it. So this is kind of an interesting story because we're not necessarily, we don't deal with that. This kind of gives an image of a merchant who might travel on ships and he's in search of these pearls. And I don't know, I haven't really had any encounters with jewelry and pearls and that sort of thing. But there was... one of our friends recently came back from California, one of our family friends, and a young kid, and I said, well, how was San Diego? And they were like, oh, it's good. And I said, did you get to go to the beach? And they were like, yeah. And I said, did you find any seashells or anything? And she goes, yeah, we found a pearl. And I was like, you found a pearl? Like in a clam shell, like you found a pearl. I was like, where is it? And she's like, well, we just left it in the place we were staying. I was like, what? I was like, well, what did it look like and how big was it? And like, was that not the most awesome thing that's ever happened to you in your short life? And it was like, no, I just left it there. I was like, you don't find a pearl on the beach. Number one, you don't find it, right? You can barely find seashells. Like you have to wait. I don't know when those people wake up, but it's like 3 a.m. that they scour the beach and they take all the seashells. They don't leave it for any families that like struggle to get their kids dressed and pack picnics and get to the beach. And it's like, this was such a great idea and now it's terrible. And So what we realized in what she meant that she found a pearl is that she found a clamshell and she heard something rattling inside of it. And so it's like, well, if your parents really thought that, and it's probably like one of those treasure maps. It's like, well, you know what's inside of this, right? But then you don't want to bring it on the airplane. And so it's something that we don't have a whole lot of touch point with, but I want to ask this question. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. When he found one priceless pearl, he went and sold everything he had and bought it. Here's the question. How can a priceless pearl be purchased? If it's priceless, how can it be purchased? Master pass, right? No. How can something that's priceless be purchased? This is an honest question. You guys can give me an answer. It can't. If something is priceless and it gets purchased, here's the truth. It was undervalued. That was like awesome to me. I was like, oh, man. So he found a priceless pearl. Somebody is selling a priceless pearl. And that means that person selling it, that person who has it and is willing to part with it, doesn't know its true value. Anything that's priceless that can be purchased is currently undervalued. Okay? So the economics of owning something valuable is this. So why would somebody sell everything they have. And in my mind, I think of a pearl, like, this. It's like, and I used to think, I mentioned it last week, that it's like, okay, he buys this pearl, like, and now he has no money. He has no home. He has no food. He sold everything to buy this like awesome pearl. And so as a kid, I think it was like a cheese slicer, and I didn't know what a pearl really was. So I was like, maybe he slices the pearl, and it's like he has a slice of pearl, and that's like his dollar. It's like he goes and buys that. Come on, people, like, help me out here, right? I had no idea. I was like, well, if you sell everything you have to buy this big ball of thing, then how do you buy and sell? And then I realized this. I mentioned it last week. By offering that pearl as collateral, you are able to open a line of credit or take out a loan. The economics of that day work the same as the economics of this day. That if you have something of value, then you can go to somebody like a bank or a person of finance, and you can say, I have this of value. We all recognize that it's immense worth. Now what I want to do is I want to open up a line of credit, and you'll give that to me, right? So we understand that. If you went to a bank right now and you could prove that you had, let's say, $100,000 sitting in another account, and you said, would you allow me to open up a line of credit for $30,000, they would serve you very quickly. But if you walk into a bank today and you have nothing to show as far as income or savings or anything like that, and you say, hey, I want to open up a line of credit for $30,000. Somebody might do that for you, but it'll take you 10 times as long as the person who walks in with $100,000 in a savings account. Does that make sense? Welcome to Business 101, right? So the merchant now bases everything he does on the fact that he has a priceless pearl. Everything he does is tethered back to the fact that he found something that is priceless, and every business venture, every decision he makes, every interaction, personal or corporate, that he makes is tethered back to that priceless pearl. Everything he does. We don't understand that. We don't understand that because if we knew that every decision we made, every purpose and place that we went to was based on the fact that Jesus died for us and has sent us to go and proclaim this thing that he calls the kingdom of heaven and bring it onto this earth, then we would have a whole lot more courage than what we have. Because if you've got $100,000 sitting in a savings account and you walk into a bank, you walk in very confidently. You're like, I got this, and if you don't want to do business with me, I'll go to the one down the street, right? And they will fight for your business. But as Christians, we kind of walk in and we're like, oh, well, it's this. And we don't walk in with confidence. I know I'm kind of digging in the weeds here. And every business venture, every personal promise finds its foundation in the reality that he has the priceless pearl. The pearl finds its true value revealed after he buys it. After he buys it, an expert in trade and pearls, a merchant in search of fine pearls, once he buys it, then he's the one that now proclaims the true value of it. It was undervalued until it was purchased. The merchant was in search of pearls, plural, but this one makes him rid himself of all of his other pearls. So for us, there must be the selling before the owning. He went away to sell his other stuff. Some of us have never truly departed from the other stuff, even though we've caught a glimpse of the greatness of our God. Because we have these other things that we're proud of, that we're comfortable with, and that actually might even hold some value. And every once in a while, we get a glimpse of who we could be if we surrendered our life to Jesus. But we have this hesitation because we know that it's going to cost us something. And it's going to cost us more than what we're willing to depart with most of the time. And it says, he went away. He looked at that pearl and he said, it's going to take change, radical change in my life for me to get this and allow this to be the center and the foundation of everything I am and everything I do. He went away and he decided, I'm going to sell all my stuff. Some of us this week need to go away and really evaluate the stuff in our life and go, man, all this stuff is just stuff. Like other people don't even value it as much as I do because I'm just like familiar with it and comfortable with it. But yet it's holding me back from really going to get something that would radically change my life. It will cost you and me everything. Now, real quickly, I'm going to spin all this because I think we look at Bible stories and we try to figure out how we fit into them. And I think it's easy for us to look at that man who went and unburied that treasure and we can say, yeah, we need to do that better in our job. And I know that God has a calling and a commission in my place to find the kingdom of heaven. And that'll change how I interact with anything and anybody. And then we look at the merchant and we go, okay, I know that God's calling me to get rid of some of the things in my life so that I can truly make him first and center. But always know this, is that hidden in all of these stories, Jesus is not trying to tell you what to do so that you can get better. Because what we've heard all of our life is, do this better, get gooder, right? And once you get good enough, then maybe you'll get God's attention. And I'm telling you, that's the worst treadmill you can be on in your life. Because if you think that you've got to get God's attention, then there's always going to be things that the enemy of your soul is going to say, yeah, you screwed up again, right? Well, yeah, you did good for a while, but both of us knew that wasn't going to last. And then the enemy wants you to start all the way over, and you do this like penance in your mind, and you say, well, if I do this or if I don't do this, and we work our way through this thing that looks more like religion than it does relationship. Okay, so now I've trudged through. Good God, if you've felt it, I've felt it even more, right? If you think this is a horrible sermon, then we trudged through this so that we can like peel back this thing that we call the gospel. Now watch this. Philippians 2, 7 through 11 says this. This is about Jesus. Instead, he emptied himself by assuming the form of a slave, taking on the likeness of men. And when he had come as a man in his external form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even to death on a cross. For this reason, God highly exalted him and gave him the name that is above every name, so that at the name of Jesus, every knee will bow, of those who are in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So what's that saying? It's saying that Jesus himself gave up everything that he had to come to earth in pursuit of us. Not like us, like 6 billion people, like you, like me. Jesus thought that it was worth his time to set aside everything that was readily available to him in heaven. He said, I'm going to put that aside. And I'm going to come all the way down because I love you. That's what Paul tells us in Philippians. And Jesus in Matthew 13 tells us those stories, and he's not telling you to become a better person. He's not telling you to pick up a shovel, and he's not telling you to go find some pearl to be a better merchant, right? He's telling these stories to give you a glimpse of his goodness and his glory. Now watch this. Buried treasure. I think we got it. Okay, buried treasure. In that story, I'm gonna read this real quick. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure buried in a field that a man found and reburied. Then in his joy, he goes and sells everything that he has and buys that field. Buried treasure. Jesus is that man. Jesus is that man. He found us buried in a field, dirty, messy, grimy, and forgotten about. Hopeless. And he found us and he said, I got to set everything aside and get down there and get in the mess and dig through it to get you and to get me, good God Almighty, when I was dirty and buried and lost and forgotten. Jesus abandoned everything to come and get me, to come and get you. He's not telling me to pick up a shovel. He's saying, I picked up the shovel and I came and found you. God, he finds us no matter how buried and dirty we are. Some of us walked into this place buried and dirty, and you walked in here, you didn't even get out of the car before the enemy of your soul was telling you how bad you are. You were driving all the way here. You had Caleb turned up as loud as you could be, but you could still hear the whisper of the failures of your past life, whether it was last year or last night. He finds us no matter how buried and dirty we are. He made the greatest sacrifice to make us his own. That man saw something of value buried in dirt. He went away and he sold everything. And Jesus said, I'll give up everything, even my own life. That tells you how valuable you are. Priceless pearl. And again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. When he found one priceless pearl, he went and sold everything he had and bought it. Jesus is that merchant. He determines your value. If anyone else is informing you of your worth, you are being undervalued. No matter who it is, projecting some sort of value on you, the only one who determines your worth is the one who looks and finds you undervalued and says, I'm going to sell everything I have to purchase you. And upon that transaction, then your value is determined. He determines your value, and he made the greatest sacrifice to make us his own. I've got one more thing to do, but I want to give God praise right now. And so let's respond in worship. And then before we go, I'm going to show you guys a video, and we're going to move into this next season empowered and full of faith. And so let's stand to our feet and say, God, you are good. God, thank you that I don't have to dig myself out of the stuff that I find myself buried in. God, I thank you that I don't have to clean myself up in order to get your attention. God, I thank you that you came and found me, that you sought me and determined my value and my worth, even on my darkest day. And so, God, the only thing we can really do is say thank you for being that man that gave up all that you had to come after us. take ownership of us. And God, thank you for being that merchant who saw something in us that no one else saw. And God, help us to find our value from you and nothing else. God, we give you our highest praise right now in Jesus' name. video of when I came into this room and we had just found out that they were going to let us use this space and this location to launch Colorado Church. And so before we do that, I just want to, I brought you, this is a notebook or a journal of kind of the process and all the details that we had to go through to get Colorado Church started and all of that. And so one of the things that I wrote down here was a list of miracles that took place in order for us to gather as this community. And I realized that some of you guys know some of these stories, and some of you guys have never ever heard this before. And so before we want to close out here, I just wanted to share this to you guys. And let you guys know. So don't sit down. We're just gonna finish this real quick. But Ryan, will you just come on up here with me? Okay. So one of the miracles is that God spoke to me, and I'm just gonna go through this list. In Easter of 2014, I felt like God gave me a word that I was supposed to just sit on, and it had some timing and some specifics to it, but sometimes when God speaks to you, he just wants you to hear it and trust him to do the work. And it was Easter of 2014, and a year to the day later, he confirmed that word in a story that I could tell you over a cup of coffee, but not while you and everybody else is standing up. And then at the beginning of this process, Emily and I submitted to our pastoral leadership and authority and invited them into the process of, hey, God was doing something in us, and we don't want to do something outside of the context of spiritual authority. And then another miracle, our pastoral leadership prayerfully decided to send us. They also decided to finance our sending season. That was an absolute miracle. Some of you guys that were more involved in that or know more some of the details than others, it was an absolute miracle. And now looking back on it, there's even more than that. The Lord continued to guide us and direct us. Then people started to give. We were trained and approved. Instead of just being sent out by a local congregation, we went and submitted ourselves to a church planting organization and gave them the authority in our life to say, we don't think you're ready to do this. So we submitted, we trained, we got approval, and they gave us the green light. And I'm counting that as a miracle. Okay? People came alongside to help in the very areas we needed. I asked Ryan to come up here. Most of you guys know Ryan. He and I have told this story before. In that season where I'm thinking, what in the world did I just do? I just essentially went, and I'm feeling like I'm selling everything I have to go do something that I felt like God showed and revealed to me. And in the midst of that, my phone rings, an unknown number. I pick it up. In that season, you pick up your phone. You answer it, right? And this guy introduces himself to me and reminds me that we had crossed paths before, but just rarely. We end up in a conversation that was probably 45 minutes. I come back inside. Emily goes, "Who is that?" And I said, "I don't think you know who that is, but I feel like he's my best friend." I felt like I grew up with this guy after one conversation, and I knew that God knitted our hearts together in that moment. That's a miracle. Okay? Some of us, we're asking God to send us a miracle, and God sends us a person, and we keep praying for a miracle. And he's like, that's your miracle, right? So people gathered, and you'll see this in the video. We found a location in the area that we felt like God was sending us to. And if you know anything about the public school system, you know that is a work in itself, and I'm claiming that to be a miracle. Before that happened, before we found this place, I got a text one morning, and this person goes, "Hey, have you purchased all of your stuff? You know, you're going to start a church and you need stuff." And he said, "Have you purchased all your stuff?" And I said, "No." And if I was honest, I would have said, "And I don't have any money to purchase stuff, things, even like, right? And he goes, well, Christmas is coming early for you this year. And I said, what do you mean? He said, our church wants to give you all of our stuff. This, like I'm touching a miracle. This came off of the wall of a church. We didn't pay a dime for this, okay? He gave us all of our stuff, everything that you can like look at and see, lights, sound, all that stuff. $70,000 worth of stuff. Who wants $70,000 worth of stuff when you're praying desperately for like $7 worth of stuff, right? So a church gives us all of that stuff. And then I went all the way past Parker and I was looking for a trailer to haul stuff. And somebody the very next day texted me. This was an awesome season where people were like texting me exactly what I was needing without having to ask them. And they said, hey, do you need a trailer? And I said, I almost bought one yesterday. I need a trailer desperately. And they said, well, our church wants to get rid of their trailer and they're selling it. And I think it has some stuff in it. Right? So I said, okay, I'm definitely interested. I said, where is it? It was in the parking lot of a storefront location where I started in ministry as the youth pastor. I used to have a purple Blazer that was louder than anything you could imagine. And I parked it in that parking lot to take care of high school students and play games with them. Kevin, you know, right? And in that parking lot was a trailer full of stuff that church was willing to sell to us, and it expedited our process. And that I'm telling you, it's a miracle. If you can drive back to a place where you used to minister and pour out your heart to students, and God says, I'm going to bless you in that same spot, you'd recognize the miraculous hand of God in your life. And then adding team members to lead ministries. We worked and worked trying to get approved, and the association related churches that gave us the stamp of approval to launch and to do this, there's also another step that you go through that they would actually give you funding for. And they approved us and gave us a grant and a loan to fund this. And that's a miracle when somebody says, hey, I'm going to give you $50,000 to start a church, right? You know what's a better miracle than that? Come on now. Not having to use that $50,000 ever. Put that in the bank, and they want it back to plant other churches, and we haven't had to touch it. And so we're just giving it back to them a little small portion, month at a time, and we don't even touch it. That's a miracle. Come on, people. We didn't take money that we have to pay back and then use it and it's gone, and then I'm begging you guys to give us money to pay back some sort of church planting loan, right? So sorry, I'm making you stand up to do all this, but so sent us specific people, worship leaders, people that help form this into a 501c3, people to do specific tasks. Ryan and I asked him to go to Kansas City to check out a church with me that we would potentially model, and they do load in and load out in a school. I said, would you come with me and do that? He goes with me, catches the heart, catches the vision, helps us figure out our processes and our procedures and all of that thing. I'm sitting on the front row and I'm listening to my buddy preach. And he's one of my favorite preachers, and it was not a good message. I was like bored out of my mind. I was like, I came all the way to Kansas City, and it's like, you guys have experienced that. Don't act like you haven't experienced that. Some of you guys were like the whole first half today until you started yelling at us. And so I said, I'm sitting in the front row with this, and I said, God, I flew all the way out to Kansas City. I said, would you just speak to me? And come on now, right here, God spoke to me and gave me Surrendered, Saturated, Sent, and Story. Gave me something to build this ministry on, and this is miracles are contagious. I wrote that down however long ago. Miracles are contagious. Now I want to show you this. If you can run this video, just watch this video. This is embarrassing to see myself on this screen, but watch this. Can we pull it up or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down, maybe. Okay, watch this. Hey everybody, I'm standing inside the auditorium of Knight Elementary School here near the Glendale area, and I'm just so excited to let you know that we are going to be allowed to launch Colorado Church right here starting February 19th. So we just want to invite you and your friends and family to come and participate in what God is doing in this area. We couldn't be more excited and wanted to pass along this news to you. Can't wait until these seats that are behind me are filled with people worshiping the Lord, learning about Him, and then going out into this area and into this world to make a difference for Jesus Christ. Can't wait to see you guys here.
Okay, so what I didn't say in that was I'm standing right here going, dear God, this auditorium's huge. I'm living in a miraculous season where God's just like, I'm here, proving Himself over and over and over again. And I thought, dear God, why did we choose this location? We should have chose something that we could like push the chairs in a circle if there was like 7 of us that decided to do this thing, right? And so it's not that you get up on a stage and everything's all figured out, right? Let me tell you this. I'm excited and I'm nervous to go to Merrill Middle School. You're going to walk in there and you're going to go, wow, really, Evan? This is kind of big, don't you think? And I'll be like, yeah, it's huge. I'm scared to death. Like I've got this place in reserve if we need, right? But I know that God's a miraculous, loving God, and He's created a foundation here for us to grow into His glory and goodness, but then to find people that have never heard about that, and they're just trying to dig themselves out of that dirt and clean themselves off so that they can present themselves to a God that they think it requires perfection in order to have relationship. And I want us to be able to invite those people to come in and sit next to us and serve next to us and lead next to us and look at each other and go, Ryan, isn't it so great that God came to us? And so I want to give Ryan the honor and the privilege of sending us out and to pray over us and to commission us to close this season out. And so go ahead.
Father, we just come before you today, knowing that you see us as a treasure you've called us to be. And that all the voices that somehow can speak louder than your voice, will you diminish them immediately? Father, and let us adventure into this next journey, looking at you and your glory, that you are the merchant that bought us. You are the merchant that bought Colorado Church. You have found a pearl that is shining bright in this kingdom, Father, bright into this community. And as we move down the street, Father, let your voice speak louder than anything else that tries to enter in. Let us use this time and this opportunity as a platform to advance your kingdom, to bring heaven to earth in your sanctuary, and that everything that we hold on to, that we claim to listen to, let it be washed away. Let that dirt just fall on the ground where it belongs. And may you rise up in its place. Rise up stronger than ever before. May we see that you have bought us and commissioned us to carry your work into this kingdom. You started a work here at Knight Elementary, and we've just seen it grow and blossom. Father, we just pray that we continue just to lay it down, that we do not hold tightly onto anything that is made yours, and that we give it freely to you to multiply, to advance, bring your kingdom to earth, Father.